And with more on the situation in Iraq and the growing strength and influence of the Islamic State, Colin Clarke joins me live from Pittsburgh. He's an associate political scientist at the RAND Corporation who focuses on counterterrorism and the Middle East. Welcome to our broadcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
Colin, let's talk about the news of the day. The town of Amirli has been liberated by U.S. airstrikes and Iraqi forces on the ground. Of course, there is still some fighting. How big of a setback will this be for the Islamic State moving forward? And do they become less of a threat to those who they are hoping to recruit and even terrorize?
Well, it's certainly a short-term victory for the Iraqi government, for the Iraqi army, the United States. I'd be cautious about getting into how much of a long-term victory this will be. Probably the most interesting part of the operation was having Shia militia, Iraqi army units, and Kurdish Peshmerga working together along with United States airstrikes. If we could only get Iraqi politicians now from those respective communities to work that well together in Baghdad, we'd be on the right track.
The United States, as you know, is looking for international support this week, with Secretary Kerry traveling abroad before making any serious decisions about extending airstrikes into northern Syria, which has been talked about this past week. How complicated would this be for the U.S. without the support of President Assad?
Well, it's an extremely complex picture on the ground. I think what you see right now with Secretary of State Kerry traveling to the region to drum up support from allies is the beginning of a strategy, of a broader strategy. The difference between Iraq and Syria is that in Syria there are many other interests to take into consideration. The Russians have interests there, as do the Iranians and Iranian proxies like Hezbollah. So you have this combination of state, non-state actors at play, and even multiple insurgent factions fighting for power, to include Jabhat al-Nusra, the group linked to al-Qaeda.
Colin, how effective are these extreme terrorist acts we keep seeing played out in the media, the beheadings, the executions? They can't be ignored.
Sure. So this is a critical part of the ISIS recruiting strategy. ISIS use of social media is multi-purpose. Part is to recruit, and it's also in part to terrorize, right? I mean, this is a terrorist group. But just like we've seen with other groups in the past, this kind of reliance on social media can also work to the advantage of the United States. It's providing open source intelligence, so to speak, about what the group is doing, where the group plans to strike next. And so it's critical to keep an eye on exactly what this group is doing through social media and monitoring these accounts.
Will they most likely move on to another town? What will they likely do for attention after suffering a setback like we just saw in Amirli?
So I think that's a great point. I think these airstrikes could potentially push ISIS back over the border into Syria, and so there will be more of a focus on events happening there, and that's where U.S. ISR comes into play, really monitoring this group, trying to get a better understanding or situational awareness of how things are playing out in Syria in order to respond, because with a Syrian sanctuary or safe haven, all this group is going to do is rest, recuperate, rearm, and potentially storm back into Iraq.
Colin Clarke, thank you so much for your time and insight live from Pittsburgh. We really appreciate it.